Now, I want to go over some bad money habits because they might actually be the culprits that are keeping you from becoming more successful than you could be. Now, I've worked for over 10 plus years in corporate finance as an analyst to a director of finance, so I want to take what I've learned about some of the best practices that businesses do to help you manage your own finances and get rid of those bad money habits. And number one is not being mindful of your money. And the concept of this is, do you really actively think about how you're spending and what you're doing with your money? Is your spending helping you or is it hurting you? Because something that businesses do, the main goal of a business is to build and maximize shareholder value. For you as an individual, your goal should be to build and maximize value to yourself. Now, there's a lot of external forces that encourage you to spend. That could be friends, family, big businesses, commercials, or whatever marketing it is. This bad habit to kick is just to make sure that you're actively thinking about how you're spending your money, because if your goal is to build wealth, then you want to use your money to help you build wealth and not to lose wealth. Number two is spending above your means. And this one is a very common one and very easy to do because, like I mentioned, there's a lot of things you could spend money on: fancy clothes, fancy dinners, fancy cars, whatever it is. And many of us know people who regularly spend above their means. My whole point here is, don't let that be you if your whole goal is to build wealth for yourself, because in the long run, this generally will not work out for you if you're regularly spending above your means. Number three is not having a plan for your money. So in business, something that's regularly done is having a plan, also known as a budget, at the beginning of each year that governs your spending and your income. Because remember, the goal of the business and for you is to maximize shareholder value, which is to make the most money for yourself. So really just have a plan for how your money comes in and how your money goes out. Number four is not prioritizing your spending. It was a lot harder to do before you have a budget, before you make sure and keep track of your finances, because you're not sure what's coming in and what's going out. But once you have a good understanding of that, now you can prioritize your spending. For example, if I was saving $1,000 at the end of each month, should I use that to pay my rent, or should I use that to buy a new TV? Should I use that to buy fancy clothes, or should I use it to put, let's say, in the stock market and S&P 500? Or should I contribute that to my 401k? Or should I take my friends for a fancy dinner? And learning how to prioritize your spending is a skill in itself, but usually the more you know about finances, the better you will be able to prioritize your spending. Now, number five is not having any thoughts on increasing your income. There's two parts of the equation. One is reducing your spend, and one is to increase your income. So there's a lot of words on reducing spend and saving more money, but there's not as much thought as how to make more money. So a good first step in the right direction is to actually start actively thinking and planning out ways that you can increase your income. Number six is not investing. And I briefly touched upon this in some of the previous bad habits when I was going over them. But investing is actually a very powerful tool that can really skyrocket the amount of wealth that you have. But this is something that you should do once you actually have a good grip on how much money you're saving or how much money that's left over at the end of each month. Because if you're already racking debt and going into debt to pay off existing bills, then this isn't really something that you can afford. Or at least not yet. But in essence, investing is trading cash for assets that ultimately earn you money. It could be something, for example, let's say buying a house where you rent it out and collect rent money, or a house that you purchase and in 10 years, let's say the value appreciated and went up a lot, now that you can sell it for $100,000 more. Or it could be putting it into the S&P 500, which could potentially gain you back, let's say 10% year over year on the money that you put in. So instead of keeping that money in, let's say, a savings account gives you back very little money, or keeping it under your mattress, it's a better idea to consider how best to use your money as an investment. Number seven is waiting too long to invest. So there's a concept known as time value of money and compounding interest. So let me give you an example of what that could be. If you were age 20 and you invested $10,000 in the S&P 500, and let's assume that S&P 500, which is an index fund, would return 10% on your money year over year. By the time you go from 20 to 65, your $10,000 would become $730,000. Now, if you were 30 years old and you put in $10,000 in the S&P 500, similarly assuming a 10% year over year increase, by the time you're 65, that money would only be $281,000, which is still a very large amount, but is noticeably less than if you had invested at age 20. Number 8 is being afraid to invest. Because full disclosure, investing is not a get-rich-quick scheme and it's not a guaranteed win. Some days, the amount of money that you put into the investment might go down. Some days it might go up. But if you're investing intelligently, the investment you put into something should, in the long run, become a lot more than what you've put in today. But that fear actually keeps people from utilizing this very important tool. And that's something the already wealthy have as an advantage, because the more resources they have, the less afraid they are of taking risk and spending them to potentially grow their wealth. Conversely, the less resources and the less money you have, the less likely you're willing to take risks to spend money and risk losing it in hopes of it becoming a lot more. And investing is also a very necessary tool for even maintaining your wealth. Because let's use that same example of where you keep $10,000 under your mattress for 10 years. In 10 years, it'll still be there as $10,000, but we also have something, at least in the US, called inflation. And that means your $10,000 in 10 years will likely be less valuable and can buy you less things in 10 years than it can today. So to keep up with inflation, that's why a lot of times people actually invest their money into, let's say, a safe stock such as the S&P 500 to at least keep up with the inflation and make sure that their money is growing at least the same rate as inflation. And on the same topic of investing, the last bad money habit is when you turn investing into gambling. Now, some people use the stock market and use investments as a get-rich-quick scheme. Like I mentioned in the previous bad habits, investing is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a tool used to build your wealth in a smart way. But it's very easy to turn investing into gambling. For example, if the S&P 500 returns 10% year over year on my money, let's say I put $10,000 and next year I can reasonably expect to get back $1,000, why not just put my money into lotto tickets, invest in lottery tickets, and potentially win back millions of dollars from the jackpot winnings? And the reason being for that is where statistics and probabilities come in. There's a good amount of historical evidence that the S&P 500 will get me back 10% year over year on average in the long run. But my odds of winning the lottery are so small and so slim that I could probably be playing the lottery for my entire life, and the chances of me winning are so slim that I'll probably spend more money on lotto tickets than I'll ever win from the jackpot. So those are the 9 bad money habits that I want to point out so that everyone that's watching this video is aware of, because some of these money habits could actually be very detrimental to you, could be preventing you from building wealth, and could also be costing you money, depending which one you're doing. So it makes a lot of sense to do this smart and strategically to help you build up that financial foundation and build up your wealth. Now, if you've liked this video, please share it with your friends and family. Like it, comment, share, and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.